It is a great privilege and pleasure to welcome a legend to Fox Sports Live, Julius Erving, joining us here. Dr. J, thank you for being
That's an underquote.
a legend. Yes, thank you so much for being here. Our very own Gary Payton is headed to the Hall of Fame this weekend. You were inducted in 1993. It's been 20 years. What's your greatest memory from that experience?
Well, for me, I never take anything for granted. And regarding my sports career, I've kind of felt as though I came in through a side door, came in through the ABA, left college after my junior year. So it was very important for me to try to go out the front door. So after 16 years, 11 with the Sixers, you know, I said, I'm done. So that was going out the front door to me.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, you know, the Hall of Fame, the nomination and the acceptance as a first ballot guy. So that was very, very, very special. It's a dubious distinction. So happy to see Gary coming in. You know, it's well-deserved. He had a marvelous career. And the term superstar is overused today. So now he can transition from having been a superstar player to a Hall of Famer and getting that distinction. And there's something special about it, Gary. You're going to enjoy every bit of it.
Thank you, Doc.
Gary always tells us how great he is. he's so modest. But I want to hear from you. What makes this guy so great and a Hall of Famer?
Well, night in and night out, there was a predictability that his teammates had about him. They knew he was going to lock up his man. They knew he was going to run the team. They knew he was going to hit clutch shots. And they knew he was going to be prepared to play mentally, physically, emotionally, and he was going to make them better. So if your sign of being a great player is making those around you better, you don't have to make them great. He did make some guys great. There were some guys who probably would not have accomplished as much as they did without him being there. But then there were other guys on that roster, you know, who would have only had a cup of coffee in the league if it wasn't for Gary. It wasn't for Gary. He brought him along, you know, he weaned him, and he said, all right, it's my guy. I'm going to make sure he's here, and we're going to compete. And compete. And you could not compete when he's on your team, because that's what he brought to the locker room, and then it transitioned to the floor every night.
See, Gary, isn't it great to have a legend talk about you that way?
Well, you know, me and Doc is really close, too. So we've been knowing each other for a long time. And for me, just to even hear that from him is really a pleasure for me and an honor, because, you know, I was raised on him, raised watching him. You know, him and George Gervin, I watched him. And for him to say that, it's just going to be a bigger honor when I go in there Sunday.
Well, a lot of people think you're great. In fact, LeBron James was in a sit-down interview with one of our writers, Bill Ryder, and let's just take a listen to where he put you in his top favorite players.
Okay.
Wow, this is tough. Michael Jordan, Dr. J, Larry Bird.
Number 2 on the list. Where do you put LeBron, Dr. J, in terms of current players? Is he number 1 on your list?
He's the best player in the NBA. And probably you could now say by far, I think he's been able to validate his greatness with the MVPs, with the championships, with the leadership, with the off-court and on-court combined package. And he's so young. That's the amazing part, because I think the guy, I don't think he's 28 yet, maybe 27.
27.
27. So what's he going to show us next?
Right.
And it's either a sign of, you know, him potentially being the greatest player in the history of the game.
Does he have that potential to be the greatest of all time?
Or the competition isn't measuring up to what it used to be.
And that's a point.
So that's a two-sided argument.
And that's a point I got, too. The competition, like when Dr. J and we were in the league, we had a lot of more competition, I think. And that's a question that I want to bring to you, Doc, is you forgot, I have a big thing with D. Rose was the MVP before he got hurt. Now he comes back out and says, I'm still the best guy on the planet. So I'm wondering, and I think that D. Rose is a great basketball player and still probably is the best. And I want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, you know, he has to prove it on the floor. You know, the argument, you got Kobe, you got Kevin, got LeBron, got D-Rose. They're probably four. Your Westbrook's got to be in the conversation. Obviously, Carmelo's got to be in the conversation. So, you know, there should always be a battle year in and year out for who's going to be the league's MVP. And it's not just being the best scorer. You know, it's not just being, you know, the guy who's the best leader or whatever. There's some intangible qualities that have to go into it where, you know, you feel if this guy's not on this team would not be as successful. If this guy's not in this league this year, then the league would not be as good. So LeBron is the reigning guy in that regard, you know, for 4 out of the last 5 years or 3 out of the last 4 years, whatever it is. And somebody else has to step up and take it away. He's not going to volunteer to give it away.
Let me ask this question to both of you, really. And sometimes it drives me crazy when people try to make lists of the all-time greats because it is so hard to separate the generations and the style of basketball. But does LeBron have the potential to be the greatest of all time, and how does he do that?
I think for him to do that, to me, he's got to surpass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's the best who ever played in the NBA. So by 5, Kareem's not even in my 5 because I decided on my 5 when I was about 15 years old. And that was Wilt, Russell, Baylor, West, and Oscar Robertson.
Those still your top 5?
That's my 5.
Okay.
That's my 5. But individually, see, he got his 5. I know he's going to chew on this one, right?
Who's your 5?
But individually, LeBron's got to pass Kareem.
He's got to pass Kareem to be the greatest of all time. Okay.
And I got Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Magic.
So you guys don't just go off of rings, because if you do, then you put Bill Russell atop of everything. It's a collaborative effort with points, with rings, with playoff appearances. It's like, what is your...
I think it's personal opinion. I mean, you know, watching guys play and being inspired, and nobody inspired me more than Abdul-Jabbar playing. I mean, you know, Russell is a guy who I befriended as a 19-year-old, and he's still my friend today. But Abdul-Jabbar was the favorite guy to watch. I mean, he just brought me out of my seat, made me want to run outside and try and do something that I saw him do. And that's pretty special. And you're special as a player if you can make a kid do that.
Do you enjoy watching the game still?
Honestly, I've gone on record as saying the game, to me, is a long-running soap opera.
Oh, yeah. Starring Dwight Howard.
And let me tell you, it's as good as it's ever been aesthetically, but I can watch a basketball game and I can kind of figure out what has happened in the league the previous 2 weeks. So that means I don't have to watch a game for 2 weeks. I just got to watch the right game and hear the commentary about it and watch the highlights.
You bring up drama, so I'd be remiss if I just didn't mention this real quick. Dwight Howard was vacillating whether he was going to go to Houston or whether he was going to go somewhere else or stay with the Lakers. Did he make the right move going to Houston?
Who? No.
And we will end it on that note. It is always a pleasure to see you. We thank you so much for being here. The legend that is Dr. J.